Welcome, everybody, to the NCAA Championship pregame show, preview show on the Grilly True Sports Network. I'm your co-host for the NCAA Championship game preview show, Mike Goodpasture. I want to welcome in my co-host, Sam McGinnis. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
All right. And Sam Teets.
Yeah, I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on today.
We always have you on, Sam. You're a co-host.
Yeah, I guess. I was just trying to figure out a way to enter the show there, but...
All right. Well, here's the big interest. As you see the jersey number 34 behind Steve Risley. No, it's not Brian Evans's jersey. It was actually Steve's jersey before it was Brian's. Steve, you won a national championship, so I would say this day has to bring back good memories for you. Maybe not so much for Ronald Reagan, but...
I don't know. It was 40 years ago. I damn near can't remember the day.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, the day goes so fast because we had this big distraction of President Reagan getting shot that day. So, although I may have told the story on air before, what Knight did was very masterful. He immediately pulled us from the hotel and took us to a gym, a high school gym, and basically we spent the rest of the day there kind of shooting around, walking through, relaxing all we wanted to. They brought in food for us and did not put TVs up, TV monitors. So we focused on the game, did not have any idea what was going on. We were told after the game that the decision to play the game wasn't made till about 30 minutes before the game. And I don't know what North Carolina did. I never spoke with any of the players there. Dave Colescott was an acquaintance of mine because he was from Indiana as well. But I never got around to speaking to him about what type of preparation North Carolina did. I doubt that it was as poignant as what Knight did. But we went in there totally no knowledge of what Reagan, other than we told he was okay, that he was going to survive and live. And we had a game to win, and let's go win it. And that was it. And then it just became another basketball game. Truthfully, as soon as you hit somebody or put somebody down or drew some blood, it was just another basketball game.
But Steve never intended to hurt anybody, Teets.
Nope, absolutely not.
No, he didn't want to hurt anybody at all. He was being nice. Now, we're going to start this show off. We did an NCAA tournament preview show at the start of this tournament. Steve couldn't be with us because, he lives in L.A. It was 80 degrees. He had better stuff to do.
Surfing lessons.
We're going to go back, and we're going to look at who me and the two Sams picked to be in the championship game. And let's just say two of us were right. One of us was really wrong. All right. So here we go.
You might want to turn it up, Mike.
That's high quality sound.
There we go. So
nobody heard that.
Nobody heard it? You couldn't hear it?
No.
Oh,
It's really quiet.
Yeah.
Oh, well, couldn't hear it. Too bad. We can just skip that part.
Well, we'll go back.
Mike,
Illinois.
we'll go back and we'll look at this because Sam Teach picked Illinois to win the national championship. Of course, they were bludgeoned in the second round by Loyola. Sam Teets picked Baylor to win it all. We won't bring up the fact that he picked them to play Texas, and because it doesn't matter if Baylor wins tonight, who they played, right, Sam?
I think you got the names mixed up here real quick, but yeah,
you picked Baylor. You had Baylor beating Texas.
I did. It's just you said Teets, so I got mixed up there first.
It doesn't matter. Sam's a Sam. You both are young, and you've at least seen Hoosiers, right, McGinnis?
I have not.
Oh, jeez. All right. So I had Gonzaga. McGinnis had Baylor. Teets had Illinois.
I would not have picked Gonzaga. I don't know who I would have picked, but I would not have picked Gonzaga.
Well, how about this? You played at Indiana. We're both from Indiana. Are you cheering automatically against Gonzaga tonight because of the undefeated record in 1976 for the Indiana Hoosiers?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not cheering against Gonzaga because although in my heart I'd like to see Indiana keep that moniker, but if it happens, it's going to happen eventually. And I think Gonzaga is as classy a basketball club as there is ever. They have a very classy coach. They represent the team and the sport very well. So if that be them, then so be it. But yeah, in my heart, I want to see the Scotty and Quinn and Benny and those guys keep that record. But it's going to fall eventually. And if tonight's the night, so be it.
I actually hope, as an Indiana fan, Gonzaga wins tonight because of what you said. They're a classy program. Mark Few does things the right way. You never hear anything questioned about Gonzaga. They play like a team, like those old Indiana teams did. So I just assume Gonzaga do it as a team with
Agreed.
4 one-and-done guys 5 years from now.
Agreed entirely.
So when we look at the Final Four, Houston and Baylor, I think it's what me and Teets kind of expected. I think it was a bigger difference in that game than we thought. I didn't think it would be such a one-sided butt whooping. But the thing that I took away from that is everybody said on the telecast that Houston seemed like they were kind of overwhelmed by the moment. I didn't get that. What I got from watching that game, because actually Houston came out, hit some shots early. It wasn't playing poorly. The thing I took away from that, Risley, was Baylor was just better.
Yeah, but it was the execution was so much better than what Houston did. Is what I expected Houston to be better at execution, and the fact that Baylor played hard for as long as they needed to and beyond. I mean, I'd say Baylor gave you a good solid 38, 39 minutes of effort, consistent effort, but they executed superior to Houston and took any advantage that Houston might have had, which, looking at that game, I didn't know that I even saw one right out of the picture. Baylor set the tone, controlled the tempo, controlled the pace, and remained true to what they had set up to do the entire game. And that's what I hope Gonzaga's looked at a lot, is Baylor's ability to control the tempo, to set their own tone and their own pace, and do the things that they want to do for an extended period of time, which is what UCLA did to them.
Yeah, and when we look at Gonzaga, I see a lot of people now give Baylor more of a shot, McGinnis. But the thing this tells me about Gonzaga is this. They took on a UCLA team that were playing as well as anybody. They'd won 5 games just to get to that point. And if a team's ever going to fall apart because they feel the pressure of trying to go undefeated, the last 10 minutes of that game would have been when that would have happened, if that's what was going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be a ludicrous notion to think Gonzaga is somehow not in it. I mean, oftentimes me and Teets talk about this in other sports, and you too, Mike, is in big situations like that with teams, the big competition is where we have questions and big moments of adversity when they have, tough opponents. Their toughest opponent so far, at least matchup-wise and close in score, I would say was UCLA. It went to overtime, and they still proved themselves. So I would say, if you're dissing Gonzaga at this point, you're insane.
Yeah, and Teets, I will go away from this tournament no matter what happens tonight. And I think it's going to be a great game tonight. I think it's the 2 best teams in the country. But the thing I'm going to remember most from this tournament was UCLA.
No, absolutely. I mean, you look at how close UCLA was to winning that game in regulation and then almost going to double overtime against Gonzaga, this undefeated powerhouse. UCLA was a team that I think we talked about it. We were saying that if Michigan State had beat UCLA in the first 4, we were going to take Michigan State to beat BYU in the next round. That's what we were saying when we first did these brackets. And now we're at a point where UCLA almost beat undefeated Gonzaga, the number 1 seed basically in the entire nation, let's be honest, in the Final Four. So I think you have to take away UCLA and what UCLA was able to do. Keep in mind that they had one of their starters in Bernard, who basically missed almost all the second half because he was in foul trouble. He went to the bench, and just the way they played the game, I mean, there were so many standout players there. Riley in the middle. I thought Riley did a great job defensively on Timmy for most of the game until maybe the final 10, 15 minutes or so when Timmy actually started coming alive there. And obviously Juzang was 12 for 18, 3 for 6 from 3, was phenomenal.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of people talk about Mick Cronin should have used a timeout at the end of the game where there's like 18 seconds left. They're coming down the court. The thing to me, Steve, is this, and I know you played for a man who did not believe in using that timeout because his team should have been prepared. And to me, it shows how well Mick Cronin coaches his team, even though they screwed that up. The fact that he had the confidence in them to go ahead and run that. And to me, I think it's a lot better to just go ahead and run your offense than it is to call timeout and let the other team set up their defense also.
Well, I agree 100%. I mean, that didn't hurt them. They scored on that possession.
No,
they came down.
That was the end of the game where they didn't score.
Oh,
they had a chance to win
the end of regulation.
Oh, you're talking about end of regulation.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right, we were talking about the overtime period. I still, even that given said, I don't believe in the timeout theory either. I think you gave too much of an advantage to the defense by calling a timeout, letting them get a breather, letting them set, letting them get into proper position, letting the coach remind them of how to defend that thing, because everybody's worked on that on offensively and defensively on that last 5 seconds of basketball or 10 seconds. Whatever the time left on the clock is. And if you can keep that out of their hands, let them get down, scramble, try and find their man, I think it gives the advantage to the offense. Now you got to hit the shot. Right? You got to make the shot, and that's the big if. But I would probably not coaching my AAU teams. I virtually never called a timeout. It's like, hey, let's go run it. And my theory was always, let's just go score and come back and play defense. I want the lead. And whenever I can get my hands on the lead, I want the lead. I'm not one of these people who likes to wait till 5 seconds left on the clock to go attack the basket. I'm saying if we got 20 seconds, let's go score. And let's put it back on them to score. Because scoring in that situation is not an easy thing to do. And to let the defense set up makes it even more difficult. So I applaud Mick for not calling a timeout, just going for it. And it didn't work that time, but it still, I think, is the best way to attack that.
All right, so we look at tonight's game. I think the biggest thing here is Corey Kissberg. He's an elite shooter. He's a senior forward who averaged close to 20 points a game on 53.3% shooting, included 45% from the perimeter. Still, Kisberg's outside shot has vanished over the past couple of games. I think that's one of the reasons UCLA was able to stay in the game. He's just 5 of 18 from three-point range over his last 3 games. And Drew Timme is a guy who's a force around the rim. It helps him when Kisbert's able to knock down the shots. I think if Corey Kissberg comes out tonight and scores 22, 24 points, I think this game's a wrap. I think Gonzaga wins it. I think Kissberg here, Teets, is the biggest key to this entire game tonight.
Absolutely, because you mentioned Timme. Timme's going to get his. I think that's a guarantee. He's always going to go out there, and eventually, even if he has like cold streaks where the defense plays him well, which UCLA had him on a couple of those the other night, Kisbert's going to be the guy who's going to make those difference makers points. He's going to be the one who's able to shoot from outside. He can score inside as well. He's got good size. He does a little bit of everything. And really, I think he's the one. He's your spark plug. He's got to be your leading scorer to me. And the fact that he was not playing phenomenal against UCLA is why the game went to overtime, almost went to double overtime. Really saw Suggs almost eclipse him in terms of what he was doing offensively. And, of course, Timme was their leading scorer. So I think that Kispert has to be the man for the Bulldogs tonight. But looking at how well Baylor played defense against Houston, I mean, Houston looked overwhelmed on that end of the court most of the times because of how good Baylor was playing them defensively. I think that Baylor will come up with a good scheme here to try to take Kispert out of the game.
So Sam, let me further on Sam, what he said. I don't think it was just against Houston. Baylor has held their opponents to less than 44% field goal percentage all season long. I think that's 8th best in the NCAA rankings. So they're doing that to everybody. And the other thing Baylor did that I was doing some research on this and pulled this out. Baylor throughout the course of the year has forced turnovers on 24% of all possessions. 1 out of every 4 times right now that Gonzaga brings that ball down. Statistically, if you follow the statistics like that, Baylor's going to force a turnover. So I think the thing here is, Mike, you can elaborate on this, is I don't think that Gonzaga's faced a defense like this, as organized a defense this is, as strong a defense it is, and as powerful. And organized is the key word here. This defense is organized. I mean, they get into position. They rotate well. I was watching some video of them. This is a very organized defense. And I don't know that Gonzaga's faced a defense this strong.
But how about this,
long.
Steve? On the other hand, I don't think Baylor's faced an offense like Gonzaga
Correct.
either.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that the key here is Davion Mitchell, because he's a guy for Baylor that makes everybody better on both sides of the floor, averages 13 points, 6 assists, but he's going to have to guard Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs may be the best player in the country, Sam Teets, and he may be selected number 1 overall in the NBA draft. He'll at worst be a lottery pick. And I think that Davion Mitchell has got to be able to slow down Jalen Suggs. And the thing is this, I think this is the big thing too. While slowing Suggs down, he's still going to have to be able to make an impact on the offensive side also. And I think that's a lot to ask one man to do.
I think that's where the issue comes into play, because Suggs is probably going to be a lottery pick. I agree with you there. I don't think he'll be number 1 in the draft, but he does a lot. Suggs is a really good two-way player. And in looking at Mitchell just is not as good of a scorer as Suggs is. So I think you might be able to dog Suggs on the offensive end a little bit, might be able to slow him down. But then if Mitchell's pouring that much effort into the defensive side of the ball, I don't know that the shot will be there offensively for him. I think that's going to be the big issue for him going into this game, is how you're going to be able to maintain that presence on both sides of the ball against a player like Suggs, who is the better player in this matchup. I think it'll be very difficult for Mitchell, and I think that could be a defining top point in this game. One thing I will say, though, is Baylor has better depth than Gonzaga. Baylor got 32 points off their bench against Houston this past round, and Houston was a team that we're talking about how good defensively they were. Well, they got 32 points off the bench for Baylor. So if you need to get a guy some rest here when you're playing Suggs, just make sure he keeps up his effort on both ends of the court. They will have that because of their bench.
All right, Sam McGinnis, defending well in transition, I think, has to be the catalyst for Baylor tonight. Gonzaga's great in transition. They outscored UCLA 15-0 in fast break points, outscored UCLA 56-24 in the paint. So I would think here the key to beat Gonzaga is to make them go deep into the shot clock and to win the rebounding battle.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the point of defense, since we've been on it for so long, I think that's going to be truly the difference in this game, is whether Baylor's defense shows up or not. Because I believe they can score regardless of Gonzaga here. I think they'll be able to score pretty well during this game. I think it's going to come down to whether their defense can keep up with Gonzaga's offense.
Can they? You picked Baylor to start. You still like Baylor tonight?
So, yeah, I think this is one of those moments, and I've had several of these. Sometimes I get burned, sometimes I don't. But I feel like when you pick somebody at the beginning, I don't really think you can go back, especially if they've made it this far, even if you think the other team's going to win. So, yeah, I'll pick Baylor here.
So, really, you think Gonzaga's going to win, though, right, Sam?
But I'm picking Baylor because that's what I picked at the start, and that's that you follow through.
Well, you could change it. I picked Gonzaga. I think there's no doubt Gonzaga wins this game. I think – Steve, if we look at the last team to win undefeated, the 76 Hoosiers, you had a game against Michigan at Indiana, which Indiana could have easily lost. You had, the tip in by Kent Benson at the end of the game. And it's hard to run through this without having a game like that. I think they've had their game like that. I think Baylor is a great basketball team. I don't think there's a huge difference between them. But when I look at the players here, we could talk about the bench and what they did against Houston. But Houston defense is really good. But when your offense is not good, it puts even more pressure on your defense. I think that's what broke Houston more than anything.
But I don't find that flaw in either one of the two teams playing tonight.
Well, there is no flaw in
there is no flaw.
team.
I think that this is a basketball game tonight where it's going to come down to one or two mistakes that one team's going to make. The game's going to be played, I believe, much like the UCLA Gonzaga game. You're just going to see everybody going up and down the court, executing, playing hard, making big plays. And I don't think UCLA made a mistake. They didn't lose that game. Baylor just hit one more shot at a critical moment. Gonzaga hit a critical shot at one more moment. They left 3 seconds too much time on that clock. Other than that, we were heading to double overtime, and Lord knows what would have happened. But neither team cracked, and I think this is going to come down to the same type of finish in this game unless one team cracks, and I don't see a flaw in either one of these basketball teams that the other team doesn't basically have the same kind of flaw.
Well, put it like this, though. When we look at the history of this tournament, All the teams that have been undefeated, almost every one of them tripped up, Teets, in the semifinal game. If you look at the record of undefeated teams in the championship game, there hasn't been an undefeated team in the championship game since 1979, I don't believe. Correct, Teets?
There might have been. Was there a Kentucky team that got there, maybe? I don't know.
It's Kentucky
lost in the Final Four. Yeah.
Okay. In Wisconsin.
Yeah, the last team to get was
79
one game.
Indiana State.
79 Indiana State.
It's Mike's alma mater.
Yeah, I believe you're correcting that then. And yeah, I think you have a serious point there when talking about how usually they trip up in the Final Four. They don't get all the way there. I think Gonzaga's at a point where they're so close to the finish line that it'd be very difficult for any team to slow them down, not let them cross that mark and finish with the undefeated record. And I mentioned 3-point shooting to me is always a big deal in determining who's going to win these games. Gonzaga right now is throwing about 37% from three, while Baylor is shooting, and this is the highest in the NCAA right now, 41.2% from three. So even with that, though, that's not a significant difference to the point that I believe it will make the difference in this game alone. So I think that Gonzaga probably has a slight advantage here, but I will say, if it gets to be a high-scoring game where both teams are over 80 points or one team's over 80 points, I think Baylor will win because Baylor's defense is better than Gonzaga's.
Now you're out of your mind. If this game this game could be in the 90s, Sam. And I'm sorry, but a game in the 90s, defense is already checked out. A game in the 80s, the defense is checked out. The team that can score the ball the best. And the thing is this, Baylor's got 6 guys that can fill it up. Gonzaga's probably got 5 or 6 guys. But I think the best 2 or 3 players on the floor are all going to be wearing Gonzaga uniforms. So I think the key here, if Baylor's going to win this game, they need to attack the basket. They need to get Timmy in foul trouble. They need to attack Suggs. They need to get Suggs in foul trouble. You need that to happen for them to have a shot at this game. I mean, to me, that is the best way for Baylor to win this, because if you match them up 5-on-5, Gonzaga's better.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that UCLA did not go after Timmy late in that game. Well, they did to some extent, but not more. I thought they were going to have to more because he had 4 fouls, I believe, at the time.
You had 3 guys, three of the best players on the team that had 3 or 4 fouls the last 7 or 8 minutes, and it didn't seem like they ever attacked those guys.
No, I would have been isolating those guys. I would have honestly put because they had some success defending Timmy in the post before, but I would have gone down, had a one-on-one in the post with Timmy, and just tried to, or even try to get him in transition, try to get him be the lone defender back, and try to get him to get that 5th foul. Because frankly, I mean that's important. Getting him off the court is just as important as scoring the basket almost.
Well, Sam, to follow up what you were saying, I was we all were watching the game, obviously, but there was a point when UCLA did attack Timmy. I don't know if it was by design or just happened to be somebody went to the hole hard on him, and Timmy backed way off immediately. I mean, it was a walk-in layup.
Yeah, but that also makes it easier to score if you attack.
No. My point was what you said, Mike, and what Sam said is so true. Where UCLA didn't do was attack those guys that had 4 fouls. And I was sitting there watching the game, looking at my wife, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" You know, and as she's playing some stupid cube game on her iPad during the game. But the one time they did, Timmy just let the guy go to the hole basically and didn't want to get his 5th foul. Didn't even want to be in a position to get his 5th foul. I thought, okay, UCLA's got to do that every time down the court now until he's forced to guard somebody, and then you get him out of the game. And then the dynamics of that game changes quickly. Yeah. So you're right, Mike. You've got to get those guys into some type of foul trouble, and that takes a lot of pressure off Baylor because the talent lies in Gonzaga's team.
Well, how about this? We look at 1983, one of the great upsets, NC State and Houston. Why did that happen? That happened because Clyde Drexler was left in to get his 4th foul at the end of the first half. I mean, you eliminated Clyde Drexler for 10 minutes in the second half. He's the best player on the floor at the time. And eventually Hakeem Olajuwon would be better, but we've seen this in tons of games before. I mean, the very next year in 1984, Hakeem Olajuwon picks up a 4th foul early in the second half. They have to take him out. Georgetown runs away with the game. So to me, if I'm Gonzaga, we got to stay out of foul trouble. And a lot of this is going to come down to whether this is called like a Super Bowl where they let a free-for-all happen, or whether you're going to call it like a regular season game where you're actually going to call the fouls. And I think from what we've seen the last few years with college basketball officials, hell, it's up in the air what you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. And what would you like to see, though? I mean, I feel like you want to see the consistency, obviously, but at the same point, I don't want to see a foul every.
Like when Steve Risley played, there shouldn't be any fouls unless something gets broke. Am I right, Risley?
Yeah, I get a little sidebar humor note. Somebody put up or sent me a link to the Big Ten championship game in 1980, Indiana versus Ohio State. I started that game, and we go to the jump circle. My wife caught this and started laughing her ass off. We went for the jump, and it was Clark or Herb Williams against Ray. Well, they got the tip where it bounced way back to the backcourt, and going after the ball was Carter Scott and myself. Well, Carter was about two steps in front of me. He ended up in the fourth row of the bleachers, and I put him there. I mean, I just shoved him into the stands.
But you didn't want to hurt him.
But if you watch, if you pull that game up and just watch the tip, I literally just shoved him in there. And I just turned around and tried to help him up. He didn't want my hand, so I ran down court. And I told my wife, I said, yeah, you see, in college, that's a message that we're here to play you. Today, that's a flagrant foul, too.
Except for the part where you tried to help him up. Why are you going to knock a man down and didn't help him up? You wanted to knock him down.
I'd let him know that it's going to happen again. I'm going to get you up and help you up, and you're going down again.
If I remember right, wasn't Carter Scott a small guard?
Yeah, but I don't care. He was going for the ball. I don't give a damn who he was.
You weren't knocking down Clark Kellogg.
All I know is he got knocked down later on. Don't worry. He had a red jersey on, and I didn't like the color of red that day.
You guys wore red also.
But today that would be a flagrant foul too. So I'm always about letting them play.
Yeah.
If they haven't done that all tournament long, I think that would be a disjustice to both teams.
They need
to call the tournament like they called the tournament.
Come on, we got to get McGinnis in because he's young.
Why? He doesn't remember anyway.
But he's probably soft. So he.
How many Final Fours has this young man even seen that he can remember? 2. All right.
Wow.
So McGinnis, should the game be allowed to be played violently the way Steve Risley likes, or should they call all the fouls?
I think I'm actually with you guys on this one. I think a lot of the penalties that they assess as penalties in both the NBA and the double NCAA tournament are kind of pathetic. And I think they just get too hung up on it. It reminds me too much of soccer flopping, and it pisses me off sometimes.
Well, how about this? Number one, watch your language, please, Sam. There's young people watching. But
what young person is watching this show?
How can you get younger than Sam?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure our average audience is probably in the 40s or 50s, but
at least
probably. Our average is the nursing home.
About
me and Ripley go around and make them turn it on to TV through YouTube and make the old folks watch it. But it reminded me of Gonzaga UCLA, though. I remember there was a flagrant one called against UCLA, which really, when you look back, they made 1 of the 2 free throws. UCLA wins the game probably without that.
Yeah, that was the one where they there was
and it was a weak-ass call. Yeah, I mean, he wrapped his arm. Big freaking deal. Let him play. The more violent it is, the more I want to watch.
Well, I don't want to use the word violent, but physical is a better word.
No, I think violent.
You know, I wasn't trying to hurt Carter Scott, but
sure
I was trying to send a message.
Yeah. The only problem was the day before at Carter Scott's house, you know, a headless dog showed up, sent from Steve Risley's house. And then the next day, he throws Carter Scott into the stands. So you tell me what was going on.
I wouldn't
Steve
hurt
was part of the Bob Knight Mafia.
I think you let them play. Let them go.
You got to let them play. And like I said, first time we've had an undefeated team since 1979 in it. We had the Patriots in 05 who were undefeated, or whatever year that was. What year was that, McGinnis? 2011, 10, 9, 8, 7.
This was the year they got beat by the Giants, in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He's reading that off some history book, too.
It was either 9 or 11.
Who's reading what off the history book, Risley?
About the Giants and the Patriots.
I watched that Super Bowl. Thank you very much. I was like 5? 10?
Well, you're
Something.
wrong because it was
Five-
2007-2008 season. So
McGinnis sucks at math because it was 2007. He looks back, he thinks about it. He says, I was either 5 or 10.
Hey, one thing to note here too is as we go on, Gonzaga's 5-0 against Baylor. How does that play into it?
It doesn't because they didn't play this year. They're actually supposed to play earlier this season.
COVID
I think they played in 2019, and Gonzaga beat them by 11 points or something like that. Wasn't it something like 93-82 or 83?
Yeah, but just if the word gets back to mentality is that, man, Gonzaga's 5-0 against Baylor, and does Baylor think, damn, Baylor can't beat Gonzaga, or does Gonzaga think, I think it's both coaches are too smart to let that really have an effect, but they're going to hear it one way or another.
I
don't think you get this far in the tournament and think about that kind of stuff. I think once you get to this point, you realize you're good enough to beat anybody.
I think this, though. I really think subconsciously, I mean, not necessarily in this situation because it's been a couple years since they played, but if a team does have your number, it can affect you, even if you're the better team and you know you're the better team, especially if something goes wrong in that game. I mean, I think that's in the back of your mind. If you're an Indiana basketball player, even in 1981, going to Purdue was a bitch.
I was going to bring that up. Exactly right. We had it in the back of our mind. I never won at Mackey Arena, and it was in our mind. Damn, we've never won here, and I don't know that we can. Every time we go there, you're right, Mike. There's a great, and I was going to bring that same scenario up that Indiana Purdue, and now Purdue's just won 7 straight against Indiana, but who cares about that today?
Yeah, and even when you played, was there any time where Purdue beat you guys at Indiana?
No, they never won at Assembly Hall.
So I do think subconsciously things like that can affect you. Maybe I'm way off there, but no. I think it's human nature that if somebody's got your number, I've coached football games before where my team's been completely outplayed, but we're playing a team we've beaten every time for a decade. And the difference in the game ends up being the fact that we know we're going to win, and they're just hoping things work out this time. And I think that happens. I mean, it just does.
I'll put it to you this way. It's not a game we look forward to go play because we knew what we were up against. We knew what we were facing at Mackey, and maybe Baylor's thinking some of that and the same thing. But I again, these are two good coaches that probably are pulling that out of that, keeping that stuff as far away from them as Sam said. McGinnis, at least he was old enough to remember watching the game.
And how about this? The other thing is when you look at it, I mean, Baylor and Gonzaga, the teams are fairly close together. But if I'm going to beat Gonzaga, I want to play them on Saturday, not Monday, because I've got 5 days to prepare for them. Now you've only got 1 day to prepare for something you've never seen. I mean, Gonzaga, like I said the other day, when I asked about do you compare them to all-time great teams, I think if they win tonight, you do. And I think actually the UCLA scraping by to beat them makes them even greater. If you look back even to 1990, you remember the great UNLV team, Steve. They dominated everybody. They blew out Duke like 103-70 in a national championship game. But they had a Sweet 16 game against Chandler Thompson and Ball State that I think took overtime to win by a point or two. There's always that one game. I think we've seen that one game from Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga wins tonight by 8 to 10 points. I think it's going to be a really good basketball game. But I think in the end, Gonzaga just has too many guys that are elite basketball players. I mean, I don't know how many guys from Baylor are going to play in the NBA, but Timmy, Suggs, Kissberg, these guys are studs. And I don't think Baylor's defense is going to be as awesome as we think tonight. I don't think we can base what Baylor did against Houston and think that they can do that against this team. Because remember, early in that game, Houston got open looks and they knocked them down. The game didn't get out of control until they started missing those open looks.
Yeah, I'm going to side with you here. I think Baylor – I do really like Baylor's defense. I will say that. I've said the entire program so far, but Gonzaga has so many scoring options right now. You brought up 3 players that everyone's thinking about. Even if Baylor takes 1 or 2 of those guys away, you're still going to have one option there who's going to be able to score 20-plus points. I don't think there's a single player on Baylor's team you can count on to regularly score 20-plus points and come up and hit the clutch shot. So I think Gonzaga has that advantage in this game.
All right, McGinnis, you sticking with Baylor, or are you going to go ahead and be right this time?
I think I'll have to stick with Baylor here. My original pick, they've made it to the championship game. I would kick myself in the butt if they somehow won, and then I went back on it.
But you'll kick yourself in the butt more when you know Gonzaga is going to win, but yet you didn't pick it. Risley?
I'd say a couple things here, as I usually do. We all kind of thought that there was really that UCLA Gonzaga was going to be no contest either. That UCLA had run their course, and they just didn't have the manpower or the horses to play with Gonzaga. And look at that game. That game could have easily gone the other direction. I mean, and we can all watch all 45 minutes of that game and find one or two plays that changed the outcome of that game. So to say, I don't think it's going to be an 8-point game. I think it's going to go to the wire. I think it's going to come down to the same thing that happened against UCLA. Gonzaga is not a 1976 dominant Indiana team. They are undefeated. I still question the caliber of opponents they played all year. I still question that versus the caliber of opponents that Indiana played all year. But I'm not going to make that comparison right now. It's going to come to the wire. But that being said, unless you picked Houston in the beginning, as Sam did, I think you'd be foolish to bet against Gonzaga tonight. So I'm going with Gonzaga. It's no disrespect to Sam because he picked Houston from the get-go.
Baylor, Steve.
Baylor. I'm sorry, Baylor. All right, Baylor. He picked Baylor from the get-go. So I respect that entirely, and they're there. But I think you'd be foolish if you were doing like I'm doing. My first pick right now is I'm making right now, and I would say, looking at this game, I've got to give the edge to Gonzaga.
All right.
I'm done.
I thought you were going somewhere entirely different with that at the start. Was
Where?
I just meeting? Because I thought you were going with the Baylor thing, but
no. I think Gonzaga's got too much. On paper, they've got too many horses.
I think Gonzaga's been so good for so long that
Right.
they're bound to win one with Mark Few. This is his best team. It's his best chance. You can't compare him to the 76 Indiana team
Right.
because of the way the tournament was set up back then. I think Indiana's weakest opponent in the 1976 NCAA tournament was like St. John's, who was ranked 18th. I mean, they beat Marquette in a regional final, and I think Marquette was the number 2 team that year. And the thing people forget about the 76 Indiana Hoosiers, they were actually 5-0 against the other 3 teams in the Final Four. I mean, they beat Michigan 3 times. They beat UCLA twice. The other interesting thing that a lot of people forget about 1976 was the last time you had 2 undefeated teams in the Final Four, because people forget Michigan beat an undefeated Rutgers team in the Final Four just to get to play Indiana.
It is correct.
That's all you got for that, Steve? Come on. That was an interesting tidbit. Did you know that, Teets?
I did not know that, Mike. Thank you for enlightening me. See, we're learning a little bit every day here,
You
Mike. We
didn't
learn a
know
little
that?
bit on the show.
Yeah, Rutgers was good that year. and I
Mr.
think
Sports didn't know that?
he hasn't watched Hoosiers. He can't be Mr. Sports.
God.
I know. Yeah,
These young kids. See, these young kids go play Xbox, and they think they know everything.
Yeah, I know.
Jesus.
I know.
I
mean,
I can't even turn an
instead of
Xbox
watching-
on.
This is what you guys should do to get pumped up for the game tonight at 7:00.
Watch
You
Hoosiers.
should go watch Hoosiers. Watch Hoosiers.
How did I know
It'll
that was
be
coming?
over about 9, and then you'll be more ready to watch the game, because really you're not equipped to even live life if you haven't seen Hoosiers.
You know, you guys are you're laughing right now, both you two Sams. You're gonna watch the movie, you're gonna come back and go, wow, that was a good movie.
Yeah, or you don't watch it, and then you die and you go to heaven, and the first question you're asked when you get to the pearly gates is, Sam Teets, have you seen Hoosiers?
No, they're gonna ask him, can they run the picket fence?
Yeah, and he's not going to know what it is.
Don't get caught watching the paint dry.
Yeah. Come on. Gene Hackman, Barbara Hershey. You got Shooter from the
Dennis
Outside.
Hopper.
Come on. Dennis Hopper, one of the great actors. Him and Gene Hackman were in every movie that was filmed in the 80s and the 90s, too, I believe.
Yeah.
So go watch Hoosiers. I don't know why we got to keep begging you, Teets.
Well, it's because you keep telling me to do it. I just don't do it.
But you need to watch it.
And see, you saying that here confirms that I'm definitely not going to do that today.
You have to. It's
See?
one of the two greatest.
Spoken like a
movies.
child. See, Mike,
Yeah.
spoken like a child.
Yep.
My dad told me to do that. I'm not going to do it because Dad told me to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Dead on. Throw
Ross,
it
Ross, don't you dare eat your broccoli. I put that broccoli on the face. You eat it, I'm going to smack you to the next gym, just like I did Carter Scott. All right, what's he do? He eats his broccoli.
All right. Whatever you do, Teets, don't watch Hoosiers.
Don't watch
McGinnis, I know you've got more common sense than some people here. Just go watch Hoosiers. Has your dad seen Hoosiers, Sam?
I have no idea. Maybe.
You ought to ask him.
I did watch it Friday night. I watched it Friday night before the thing
I've
started.
seen that movie 100 times. It's one of the greatest movies ever. And you guys will understand me and Risley much better by watching that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any way I'll ever understand you, Mike.
I said you would understand us better. I didn't say you would understand.
Yeah, okay, that's a good caveat. I don't think it is understandable.
What's that supposed to mean, McGinnis?
I don't know. I spend it.
Yeah.
I spend.
Why don't you answer that question,
It doesn't
McGinnis?
matter if you think you know what you're saying or not. You just don't.
Who don't know what they're saying? Me?
No, I'm saying like there's no way you can understand what you're saying, even if you think you do.
No, because you're not supposed to. That's the beauty of me.
See, yeah, I figure
Mike-
that's what it is you don't want anybody to know. You see, this is the problem. You tell us to go watch this to understand you, but you really don't want to be understood. That's the greatest.
But I would like to be partially understood, and I would really like to, be able to, I don't know, what do you think? What's the word I'm missing here, Risley? To be able to impart some wisdom to you guys. So go watch Hoosiers. If you don't, the next time we do a show, we're going to sit here and we're going to watch Hoosiers all together while we do the show. And we could get Angelo Pizzo to come on with Bobby Plump too.
We've had him on.
I know. Neither one of these guys know who Angelo Pizzo is. But
No.
you ever seen Bull Durham, guys?
My goodness.
Mike, you have to understand, in their era, they play PlayStation and Xbox. They don't watch classic movies.
Yeah. You ever
They
seen Slapshot?
learn to kill things.
McGinnis, you've seen Slapshot, right?
No, I started watching. I've seen the trailer for it, and a lot of the hockey movies I noticed that were really old. I don't know, man. They're filled with a lot of filth.
There's a lot of filth. There's a lot of filth in professional hockey, especially in the 1970s, McGinnis.
I had a rant about this with Sam Teets on Friday. So, yes, you are 100% right.
Yeah. I mean, the 70s and 80s, that's what hockey was, filth and fights.
Yeah, I think, there were several seasons in a row where they were doing the fighting statistics, and literally in half of their games, 50% of them, there was at least one fight.
Yeah, and it was awesome, and now they've ruined it.
Now it's less than 20%.
Now you can't even beat a dude's ass. You get in trouble.
McGinnis, haven't you ever heard the old adage, I went to a fight and a hockey game broke out?
Yeah.
Of course I've heard that adage. I'm a
Yeah.
hockey person.
And it was a great adage. You're not a hockey person. If you're a hockey person, you can name the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team right now.
Oh my goodness.
Give me 5 of them, McGinnis.
I can't.
You're an American too, McGinnis. You should know the 1980 Olympic hockey.
Pavlich, Suter, Craig, Eruzione, Butler. How many more we got? Baker.
Yeah.
Come on. Are you kidding me?
Olczek was the backup goalie, or Januzek was the backup goalie.
Actually, Craig was supposed to be the backup goalie.
Yeah, but then he wasn't.
He wasn't.
Come on. Jack Morrow? Or Ken Morrow, I'm sorry.
You know who the coach was?
Wait. Does McGinnis know who the coach was?
McGinnis? Who was the coach?
My goodness, I told you I know nothing about that.
Oh my
team.
God.
This is the greatest sporting event in the history of the United States.
The history of the world.
This is anybody will tell you the number one sporting event in the United States. The first thing they'll tell you is the Miracle on Ice.
See, you guys missed all the good stuff. I mean, you don't understand what the Miracle on Ice meant. I mean, this is the thing. Hockey is not one of America's favorite sports, right, McGinnis?
No, it is not. It's like
But when they list the greatest moments in sports history in the U.S., a hockey game is always number one.
Number one. It's always
A
number
hockey
one.
game. I'd never even watched hockey until the 1976 Olympics.
I know where I was when I watched that hockey game.
I could tell you my entire day what happened that day.
Yeah,
you guys don't understand. What was the greatest sporting moment?
Michigan State.
What is the greatest sporting moment you ever saw, Teets?
James Harrison pick 6. Probably my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, not your favorite. What's the greatest?
What is the greatest sports moment you lived through that you saw?
The fact that you think about it tells you it probably wasn't that great.
Because there are none in the last 25 years.
Did you also watch the Giants Super Bowl? Because I was going to say the one-handed catch.
I saw it. So it's not like the 1980 Olympic hockey team beating the freaking godless communists.
The thing about the one-handed catch, the thing about the one-handed catches has been duplicated multiple times now in the NFL.
Well, not off the helmet though.
No, but it's been duplicated. I mean, other guys have made great one-handed catches that are just as spectacular as that one.
But it's not an iconic sports moment.
Yeah, that was in the game. They didn't finish that drive. That was over.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Bobby Thompson's home run. That's an iconic moment.
It was an iconic moment.
You
but
know,
it wasn't the greatest sporting event of all time.
Lewis beating Schmeling, Ali, Frazier, Jack Johnson, James Jeffries. The thing is, most iconic sports moments were not NFL. Probably the only iconic NFL sport moment is what? Super Bowl III because Joe Namath beat the Colts?
Yeah, that's probably the most iconic NFL sports moment.
Yeah, but is there any other iconic sports moment, NFL-wise, that transcends everything?
No. The Immaculate Reception could be. I know you hate that, Mike, but that could be considered.
It doesn't matter.
I think that'd be close.
Yeah, the Immaculate Reception would be in there.
But I mean, scope in the entire sport, in the entire world.
Nothing beats the Miracle on Ice. That game was you were on the edge of your seat the entire game.
Yeah, and it was only showed on tape delayed.
Yeah, it wasn't. They didn't even show it live. But there was no internet to blast the score out.
Well, I know. So the thing is this. I remember coming home from school that day and sitting in my room with no TV, no radio, no nothing, and just sitting there reading a book until it got to be 8 o'clock so I could watch the game not knowing who won.
We were practicing up in East Lansing, and we came back to the hotel, and all of us were sitting on the ends of the bed watching it.
Yeah, and I remember the next 2 days later, that Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, they had to beat Finland to win the gold. I mean, hell, even my mom and my sister were watching that game. I mean, it was huge. It was huge for the entire country. And the bad thing is there's nothing like that anymore. Because
it was huge for the world because the Russians got beat.
Yeah.
I mean, the mighty Russians who monstered every team in the world in hockey.
I think they'd won every hockey gold medal since 1952 without losing a game.
Yeah.
Except for 1960, which was the original Miracle on Ice. What was that? And what was that? Saginaw or what? Squaw Valley, California, where the United States beat the Czechoslovakians and the Russians to win the gold medal. That was the only time the Russians had ever lost, and that was a Russian team coming into 1980 that was like 24-2 against NHL competition over the previous 3 or 4 years, and had beaten the U.S. 10-3 like 7 days before the Olympics started. I'm just telling you. Have you seen the game, McGinnis?
The Miracle on Ice?
Yes.
I have seen the end of the game, but I have not seen the whole game.
Hey, Sam, let me help you out.
Okay.
There's a Disney movie made about that.
Miracle.
Yes, there was. Yes,
so if you want to, I mean, Disney's probably a prominent word in your time frame right now, age-wise. So you may want to go watch the Disney version of Miracle on Ice.
I'm sure he's seen the movie Miracle.
Have you?
I literally just said no. I mean, I don't know how.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I meant the actual game, though, is what I was asking. Risley's the one that goes to movies because Risley likes the abridged versions in small movies. All right.
I went through college.
Yes, I've seen the actual Miracle on Ice. I have seen the game.
Oh, Teach saw the actual Miracle. Did you see the movie?
No, I haven't seen the movie. Why would I watch the movie if I saw the actual thing? The game would be better.
Thank you. I didn't even like the movie Miracle, to tell you the truth.
Okay, Sam, what's the one word that sticks in your mind after watching that movie? I got one word that sticks in my mind.
I told you. I said I watched the game, not the movie.
Yeah, he watched the game. What's the word that sticks in your mind from watching the movie, Risley?
Again.
Do it again.
Again.
Yeah, because Herb Brooks was a lot like Bob Knight. He would not be allowed to coach right now.
He was a lot like Bob Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't hit anybody, though.
No.
That we know of. He probably did. But
I don't want the best players. I want the players who are going to make the best
We're
team.
going to have to go because McGinnis looks frustrated.
I'm just here at this point.
Just go watch Hoosiers and make the old guys happy.
All right. Anything else on the game tonight? Everybody excited to watch it?
I'm just hoping it's over by halftime and it's a blowout so I can go to bed at my normal time.
I know. See, it comes on at 6 o'clock here.
I was upset at first that Gonzaga UCLA was so close because I was really tired and I wanted to go to bed at like 10. And I'll tell you, what's up with 2 hours between games?
Well, you got to get Miley Cyrus in for the young kids.
Why? Why would you want your young kids to see Miley Cyrus?
Wow, I found something I can agree on with Mike.
Well, I mean, come on.
I agree with Mike, too.
I had on Twitter somebody put they were cleaning for COVID. And I mean, after
don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do the joke. I know what you're going to do. Don't do it.
It's a good joke, though.
What's the joke?
What did you say, Mike?
I said, after you clean for COVID, you had Miley Cyrus on. Would you then have to clean for STDs?
Oh, man.
I knew that was going to work in today's show somehow. I knew you were just
Actually, I wasn't until it just popped into my head. But yeah, the 2 hours in between games, whether it's Miley Cyrus or not, really bugged me. I don't know why we had to wait that long.
I actually turned Hoosiers back on. I did. No, I know. Seriously, I did because I have it on tape. I have it DVR'd.
You have it on tape. You don't have it on tape. You can
Well,
tell
I
how
have a DVR.
somebody old. Hey, Sam, you can always tell somebody's old when they talk about they taped something or they watched it on tape. They're really talking about the
exactly.
DVR.
I take that heat. I take that crap. Well. I had it
And
DVR. I have a
there we
DVR
go.
on my cable box, so I can pull it up whenever I want to, and I pull it up often.
McGinnis, have you ever used a VCR?
Yes, I used the VCR for the first 7 or so years of my life.
There you go. And I know
Beta or VHS?
Oh, Beta was even before VHS.
Beta or VHS?
I think it was VHS.
It was VHS.
How do you know it was VHS, Risley? Why are you asking?
Because
Like
Beta, by the time he was 7 or 8 years old, Beta had pretty well faded out.
Hell, Beta had faded out by the time I was 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah. Problem was they couldn't get the tapes long enough.
Well, the tapes cost a lot.
Yeah.
I used to buy a blank tape to tape.
All right. We're wasting time here. And
I know, but more and more people start watching on Periscope and stuff, so we just got to roll with it. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Are we going to come back tomorrow and wrap up the game?
Hey, did anybody see the preview for the new Space Camp 2?
No, we're not starting a new conversation. Risley, this is it.
Nobody cares about Space Jam 1 even.
I saw Godzilla versus Kong last night.
All right. And tonight you can watch Baylor versus Gonzaga, which will be a lot like that. And why would a grown man watch Godzilla versus Kong?
Sam, what are you so frustrated about up there in the upper right corner? Mike Brady?
He's sitting there thinking, now they're going to ask me if I saw that. I haven't seen that yet.
Well, and
I hope Gonzaga wins tonight and goes undefeated. Good for them. They deserve it. They've earned it.
All right. You can follow Sam McGinnis. Where, Sam?
At Samuel McG22. If you want any modern NHL sports, you can absolutely come to me for that.
All right. I don't know what modern means. You mean boring and nobody cares. All right. Other Sam, where can we find you?
You can follow me at Sam_Teach33 on Twitter for new draft content and constant basic updates on the NFL and NBA.
And if you want more Sam and Sam, every Friday night at 9:30, you can get them. It's slightly more boring because me and Risley aren't there to spice it up since we're old folks. Risley, we can find you at SRisley34, correct?
No, I'll be in front of the TV watching either Hoosiers or A Miracle on Ice, both of which I have DVR'd.
Oh, hell. We watch Field of Dreams. You like Field of Dreams, too, don't you?
Oh, no. You know what I was going to bring this up. I was going to bring this up.
Did you tape over Field of Dreams?
No, I've got Field of Dreams. No, I don't. See, I never saw my father after I was 8 years old. So Field of Dreams has some personal meaning to me. That's a whole nother show. But what I did watch, which is a great movie, For the Love of the Game.
Oh, I love that movie.
I watched that too. What a great movie. Have you guys seen For the Love of the Game?
Hey, and both of their defenses, most people haven't.
You haven't. That's one you got to watch.
Yeah.
Not even going to tell you about it. It's a baseball movie.
It's good.
It's good.
It's real good.
In the cathedral of Yankee Stadium, it's taken over by a chapel.
And wasn't it Vin Scully that did?
Yeah, he did the game. Yeah, like he was a Yankees announcer.
Dude, I used to buy the MLB package just so at night I could fall asleep listening to Vin Scully do it.
What a voice.
But what the hell? Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to finally wrap this monstrosity up. Are we coming back tomorrow to recap the game, Sam?
I am.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I'll come back. Don't stretch it out to an hour long, but I can come back and do a 30 or 40-minute show tomorrow.
It's not an hour. It's 56 minutes right now. Quit bitching. All right, so we're going to get off here. You got to go play Madden again, huh?
I got to go find a job.
You know what? What are you going to do at the job interview if the guy's from Indiana? He says, what do you think of the movie Hoosiers?
Hoosiers.
Lie through my teeth.
That is never going to be an interview.
It can be in Indiana, McGinnis.
Oh, that's because it's Indiana.
Hey, yeah. Sam, it was in every interview I ever did with anybody.
Yeah.
Who did you interview?
Have you done any interviews?
I was a hiring sales manager for 20 years.
Yo, Teets.
I hired about 100 people.
He got his job because he played for Bobby Knight. So
I don't care how I got the job.
He never did an interview. I was complimenting you. It doesn't matter how you get a job as long as you get one.
Yeah, and it was a very nice job and good careers with Pfizer.
Yeah,
I've got my vaccine.
He's got a vaccine because he's an idiot too. So I don't get a vaccine because I'm not stupid. Pfizer just kills people. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. And Pfizer, of course, will not be a sponsor at any point, anytime in the near future. And I wouldn't want them to be because they kill people. But for now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap it up. For Sam Teets, Sam McGinnis, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth.